I was 27, living in a third-floor walk-up off Milwaukee Avenue, the kind of place where the radiator hissed like an irritated cat, and the L sang me to sleep. Chicago winter had lost its novelty and started getting personal. Salt crusted my boots. The air made promises it couldn't keep. I filmed anyway. I'd been an indie filmmaker for 6 years, which in Chicago time is 3 apartments, 8 day jobs, and 41 short films that made my mom cry for reasons unrelated to the plot. I answered to the name on my coffee cups, Greer, but on my call sheets I kept the spelling correct, Greer Hollis. The script that mattered was called Floodlight. It started on a sticky note. Girl steals back her shadow. A sentence that meant nothing and everything. I developed it in late-night sprints, rewriting on the blue line, storyboarding in a booth at Lula Cafe, letting the city be my storyboard alleyways like proscenium arches, laundromats as confessionals, the lake a blank page, and I did it the way everyone says to: drafts, feedback, rewrites, messy revisions in my Google Drive, timestamps like tree rings. I sent it to a grant panel, to a workshop run by a Chicago mentor, and to a few friends. One of those friends said, "You should talk to Ari Kincaid." Ari was the kind of name that drifted around after screenings. He had a SXSW laurel tattooed on his ego, and a smile you could project an apology onto. We met up under the heat lamps at Music Box Theater after a shorts block. He said he loved how Chicago your writing feels. He said, "Send it. I'll give notes." I sent it. He replied once, "Bold premise, needs more menace, keep going." Which is like telling a drowning person, "Try air." Weeks passed, I revised. I submitted Floodlight to a couple festivals. Pass. Personal pass. Pass with, "We loved this but..." So when Lakefront Film Festival rolled around in April, I wasn't there to see my film. I was there because my best friend and DP, Jules, had a doc in the program. Jules wore fingerless gloves like a protest and stretched a beanie over hair that never listened. "Come on," she said, tugging me toward the largest auditorium. "You'll like this one." "What is it?" "Program says urban fable." We slid into creaky seats. The house lights dimmed. The screen glowed white like a dare. The title card read, "Night Borrowed." Director, Ari Kincaid. I felt a little twist of pride knowing him. Then, the first scene rolled. A girl in a cheap coat stood at the edge of the lake, her breath ghosting. City lights reflected like scattered sequins, the girl whispered. "The moon owes the lake a reflection." My lungs evaporated. That line wasn't just mine. It was me. I wrote it 2 winters back, at 2 to 17 a.m., making tea in socks I'd washed in the sink, because the landlord forgot to fix the machines again. I knew where the comma lived in that sentence. The film continued. Bike messenger protagonist. A janitor who feeds the hallway cat. A scene in a bodega with a singing neon open that blinks out on pen. A climactic chase, where the city felt like it tilted. It was Floodlight. The spine, the beats. Even the stained glass metaphor I'd thrown in at draft 9, to show the way people fracture and still let light through. My body went quiet. Like when your phone dies mid-text and you keep moving your thumbs anyway. Jules leaned in. "You okay?" "Shh." On screen, the girl stole back something that had been stolen from her. In the Q&A, Ari would likely call it a meditation on ownership. He'd say the word neon like he invented it. I stared at the exit sign and counted backwards from a number I couldn't remember. I watched my script breathe through someone else's mouth. Between scenes, the audience laughed in the exact places I knew they'd laugh, and I sat there like a ghost knight, watching strangers react to my timing, my rhythm, my knife. Halfway through, I pulled out my phone. My hands remembered the path. Drive, Floodlight, draft 17. The blue links of version history lived like fossils in the corner. I tapped them. Timestamps climbed the page like a growth chart. I found the draft with that line, "The moon owes the lake a reflection," and stared at the date. A full 6 months before Ari's Instagram post with a clapperboard that read, "Night Borrowed, Day 1. I swallowed. My throat clicked like an empty clip. He hadn't even bothered to rename some scenes. The script supervisor in his behind-the-scenes photo had a binder with borrowed night, scribbled on it close enough to the original to be lazy, far enough to be smug. On screen, the camera moved like Jules moves it, handheld but steady, as if the operator trusted the ground and didn't. I squeezed Jules's knee. She looked at me, searching. My script, I whispered. It's floodlight. It's mine. Jules blinked, then looked back at the screen, then back at me. Greer. Shh. The film's climax unfolded at the 18th Street Bridge, exactly where I'd staged mine, down to the alley detour, because the main walkway's chain link looked more cinematic. Ari even used the same line of intercut breathing I'd asked Jules to try in a test shoot. The audience applauded at the end like a storm you can see from miles away. I couldn't hear it. My blood had a sound now. House lights rose. Ari walked to the front with his producer, Maris, the workshop mentor who'd once told me I should make my protagonists less sharp, more likable. He wore a thrift store blazer that tried too hard, and a baseball cap that said authentic without the letters. He grabbed the microphone. Thank you so much for coming out. Night Borrowed was born from countless late-night walks along the lake. Thinking about how cities borrow and repay, I stood. Jules grabbed my sleeve. Greer, wait, I can't. My voice belonged to someone else now, someone who doesn't wait while you explain away her fingerprints on your work. I thought about every grant rejection, every so close. Every morning I felt hungover on nothing but hope. I thought about Ari's emails, 3 sentences total, and the workshop where Maris told me to open it up while glancing at her phone. A staffer with a laminated badge made her way down the aisle with a roving mic. Questions? Ari asked, spreading his arms like a charitable sea. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't know. Congrats on Night Borrowed. Heard you were involved. Credit? My mouth dried out. Someone knew. Or assumed. Or saw my name somewhere it wasn't. The staffer leaned the mic toward a guy in a flannel shirt. Ari, can you talk about your influences? He asked. Ari smiled. Chicago. Always Chicago. My version history still glowed on my phone. Blue timestamps. Names of collaborators in the marginalia. The comment thread where Jules wrote, "This bodega scene made me cry, you monster." If I tapped the 3 dots, I could copy a link to my entire draft history. I could make it public. Screenshots were already stacking up in my Photos app, the matching lines, the location choices, the dialogue that only I could have written because it came from a deadline and a deli sandwich, and the way the L pauses just long enough over the river to make you believe in luck. Power, I realized, can be a whisper. Or a link. Ari kept talking. I wanted to capture the way the city shines even when it's broken. Same, I said, too loud. The words snapped in the air like a twig. Heads turned. Question? The staffer said, pivoting toward me. Jules's hand tightened on my sleeve until I could feel each finger's argument. Think, she whispered. Pick your moment. But what if the moment had picked me? I raised my chin. Hi Ari, you said late night walks started this film. Can you tell us about the line, "The moon owes the lake a reflection," and when you wrote it? Ari blinked. Just once. A camera flash. He recovered. Lines come from everywhere, right? From the collective city. A few polite chuckles. Cool, I said, my voice steadying like a dolly shot, because I wrote it on November 19th at 2:17 a.m. It's in my draft history, along with the janitor with the calico cat and the 18th Street Bridge detour and the scene where she eats a warm tamale on the curb. I can show you. The room inhaled as one organism. Ari's smile tightened. Maris shifted, then leaned toward his ear. The staffer held the mic closer to my face, as if it were a breathalyzer. I took a breath. This was either going to ruin me or crown me. Maybe both. The only constant was the truth in my pocket. I looked at Jules. She nodded once. Slow. Actually, I said, my thumb hovering over the 3 dots. I'll show all of you. I clicked. The share link populated. A loading wheel spun like a roulette. And then, my phone screen went black. Battery 1%. The link hung there between worlds. I stared at my reflection in the dead glass, at the room waiting, at Ari making a calculation behind his eyes. If I sat down, the moment would pass, and I'd become a cautionary DM. If I stepped forward, I might light the match that burned my career down to the studs, so I could build something true. I made my choice. I stepped into the aisle. Greer, Jules whispered, terrified and proud. The staffer moved to intercept me. Ari shifted the mic to his other hand, throat clearing. From the dark of the projection booth, a voice called out. "We're going to take one more question." I didn't slow. I raised my dead phone anyway, like a flag that didn't need wind to be seen. "Here's my question," I said, heart thundering. "Why does your film wear my fingerprints?" Every eye in the room swung to him. He opened his mouth, and on the back wall behind him, the projector flashed not an image from his film, but an error screen. The tech had glitched, revealing the festival's desktop. There, for 3 long, silent seconds, hovered a thumbnail. Floodlight, Draft 17, PDF Hollis. The room exhaled into chaos. Chaos sounds like 100 people pretending to whisper. Programs flapped like startled birds. Ushers ran in soft shoes. Someone recorded vertically. I stood in the aisle with my dead phone raised like a talisman and watched the back wall bear my name. Floodlight, Draft 17, PDF Hollis. 3 seconds. Then the projector snapped back to black, and the room remembered to breathe. Ari smiled so hard his jaw clicked. "Looks like the tech gods want in on the discourse," he said, and everyone laughed the nervous kind. Maris cut in. "We're out of time, thank you all." She reached for the mic like it owed her rent. I didn't move. Jules didn't either. Her hand left my sleeve and found my back, a small, steadying heat. Ushers with lanyards formed a polite barricade. "Let's talk outside," one said, voice trained in conflict aerobics. "Great," I said. "Let's talk where the Wi-Fi won't betray us." We spilled into the lobby, then onto the sidewalk, the lake wind slicing between buildings like a new idea. Ari approached with his PR smile. He held his hands out like he was landing a plane. "Greer, right?" I loved that line in the Q&A. "The city shines even when it's broken." "That was your line," I said. "Like the rest." He laughed softly. "We're all pulling from the same well." "Then why does your bucket have my initials?" Jules stepped between us, half a head shorter than him, twice as sharp. "Don't." A festival rep hustled over, clipboard clutched. "We can mediate in the green room." "I don't want mediation," I said. "I want attribution." Ari tilted his head. "I never saw your script." "You emailed me for it," I said. "December 1st. Send it. I'll give notes." You replied, "Bold premises," and disappeared. Maris appeared at his shoulder like a stage direction. "Greer," she said, voice dipped in honey and knives. "You shared your piece in a workshop. We discussed themes. It's normal for work to echo." "I don't write in echoes," I said. "I write in fingerprints." My phone buzzed against my palm like a caught moth. It wasn't dead, it had resurrected at 2%. 2 new texts. "Unknown, DM me," I wrote sound on night borrowed. "We need to talk." "Mom, are you eating vegetables?" I looked up at Ari and Maris. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, surprising myself with how even I sounded. "I'm going to post my draft history, every timestamp, every comment, every email. Then I'm going to make the film I wrote the way I wrote it, and I'm going to show people the difference between theft and homage." Ari's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Be careful, defamation is expensive." "Plagiarism is too," I said. "I'll let the receipts pay for it." He shrugged like a confession. "Do what you need to." I nodded once. The kind you do when you've just stepped past the point of no return and found out the ground holds. We walked away before it could turn into a scene with security. Down the block, at a diner that tasted like coffee and forgiveness, we slid into a booth. The waitress, a woman who looked like she'd survived 5 economies, poured without asking. Jules opened her laptop. "We need power," she said, digging for a charger like a medic. My phone climbed to 3%. I hit drive. Floodlight. Version history. Blue timestamps bloomed like a constellation. I screen recorded as I scrolled. Dates, edits, comments, the laundromat scene where the quarter jams, the janitor with the calico cat named Princess after a long dead boat. Jules leaned over. We should post this with context, not just a link, a thread, a video. Both, I said. I'll do a director's cut of my own script, scene by scene with receipts. A split screen, my intention versus his imitation. Fair use, Jules said. Criticism, commentary, education. We'll check with a lawyer, I said, pretending I knew one. The door dinged. A man with a beanie too clean to be local slid into the next booth, mumbling into his phone about deliverables. I wondered if the whole city was currently a set. I drafted the post in notes, fingers moving like they wanted me to keep up. Hi, I'm Greer Hollis. I'm an indie filmmaker in Chicago. Tonight at Lakefront. A film won applause, wearing lines I wrote at 2:17 a.m. Here's my draft history. Here are timestamps. Here's the bodega, with the dying neon. The 18th Street Bridge detour. The calico cat named Princess. I am going to show you what floodlight actually is. If the city shines when it's broken, watch me wire it back together. Jules added, include the date you sent Ari the script. Right. I searched my email, pulled up the thread, took screenshots like evidence into a zip file. My phone buzzed again. Unknown sound guy. I'm Ben. Ari forwarded me a PDF labeled Floodlight while we were spotting. Said, look at the rhythm. Check your drive activity, you might see weird access. I stared. Jules read over my shoulder. Her eyes went flat and hot. Screenshot it, she said. I did. Ben sent a follow-up. A picture of a monitor with waveforms and a reflection of a man in a cap. In the corner, a desktop sticky note. Floodlight pacing. Keep the breath cuts. My ribs went loose. Another ping. At Film Chatter DM'd. We're a film gossip account with receipts. Want to talk? Gross, but useful. Post, Jules said. Do it before they start spinning. I hit upload on the draft history link. I attached the email screenshots, the drive video with the highlight circle around the moon line. Caption, receipts, thread. I felt my pulse in my teeth. The first retweets came from friends, then friends of friends, then strangers with usernames like @LensFiend and @GrantRejects. Someone clipped the Q&A and slowed down the moment the thumbnail flashed my name. They put dramatic strings under it. It was ridiculous. It was perfect. My story spread the way spilled coffee finds every crack. Okay, Jules said, fingers already in motion. Director's cut. We can shoot over the weekend. I'll pull the A7S and the drone. We'll need favors. I've lived on favors, I said. Let's graduate to alliances. We opened a new doc. Floodlight director's cut plan. Scene list. Locations. Cast? Crew? Debate. Do we cast actors or speak directly to camera? Answer. Both. Make it hybrid. Let the film breathe, then pause to show receipts. I saw it in my head like a train schedule finally making sense. We'd open on me at the lake, the skyline cold and honest. I'd say the line Ari lifted and then pull back to show the paragraph where it was born. We'd cut to the laundromat, to the bodega, to the undertint of Chicago that most films turn into wallpaper. We'd pull the camera into spaces where the city looks back at you. We'd title it Floodlight, Director's Cut Stolen Version. Jules chewed her lip. Legal? Provable, I said. We never use more than we need. We critique, we transform, and the rest is ours. We started a list of people to call. Ray, former professor, who owed me after I PA'd on his microbudget that one muggy summer. Nova editor friend who breathes rhythm. Kai coder, who could pull metadata from drive logs I didn't know existed. Theo, ex-boyfriend, with a sound kit and a grudge that had matured into mutual respect. My phone rang. Greer? A woman's voice. Professional. Measured. This is Anita Huang, a lawyer with the Chicago Artists Legal Clinic. Someone forwarded your thread. Oh, I said, sitting up straight in a booth like it mattered. Hi, I can't formally represent you unless we engage. she said. But I can tell you a couple things. Do not accuse anyone by name of stealing in absolute terms yet. Use phrases like alleged or substantial similarity for now. Document everything. Don't take the thread down. And if a cease and desist arrives, do not panic. Will one arrive? If they're foolish, she said. Also check the terms of any workshop you attended. Maris. I opened the email from months back. I scanned. One clause. Participants acknowledge discussions are public within the cohort. Instructors reserve the right to discuss work in the aggregate for educational purposes. Another clause. No obligation of confidentiality is created. I sighed. It's not an NDA. Good, Anita said. They'll try to claim that you brought it into the room, so it's communal. That's not how copyright works. You own your work the moment you fix it in a tangible medium. Your drive timestamps are strong. I swallowed. Thank you. One more thing, Anita said. If you're making a director's cut, keep your behind-the-scenes documentation clear. Your transparency is your shield. We hung up. Jules wagged her eyebrows. We have a lawyer, kinda. More like a guardian angel with a calendar, I said. The diner hummed. A table of teenagers filmed TikToks in the corner, unfazed by the concept of conflict. Greer, Jules said, softer. Are you sure you want to do this? It'll get messy. I'm already messy, I said. Might as well be honest about it. We made a budget. It looked like a joke, until it didn't. We could pull favors for gear, use my apartment for interiors, borrow the 18th Street Bridge like a prom dress. We'd need money for permits and food and, maybe if we wanted to make a point, projectors. What do you want out of this? Jules asked. Credit, I said. Control. Closure. Closure. And vengeance? I thought about Ari's easy smile. Maris's workshop jargon. The Q&A laugh that felt like a splinter. Vengeance can be a byproduct, I said. I want to build something in public that no one can reframe. We set up a crowdfunding page with the transparent honesty of people who've been lied to. Here's the budget. Here's the plan. Here are the risks. Here's our city. I uploaded a 2-minute teaser, my phone screen scrolling through version history, voiceover steady, heart obvious. I ended with the lake, and the line about the moon, because of course I did. We hit publish. Within minutes, small donations pinged. $10. $25. Someone named Princess's Person gave $100 with a note. For cat treats and justice. My DMs filled with horror stories. Everyone had a cousin whose script inspired something that somehow didn't inspire a credit. Ben, the sound guy, offered to testify. Nova said she had a weekend and a hatred for timeline thieves. Kai sent a link to a tool I didn't understand, and a message. I can map access logs like a family tree. My phone buzzed with a new notification. Ari Kincaid posted a statement. Jules and I read it together, over the rim of cold coffee. It was a Notes app apology without the apology. He said he was inspired by the city, that shared themes are inevitable, that any overlap is coincidental, and that he would never intentionally diminish a fellow artist. He did not mention my name. A minute later, Maris tweeted, "Workshops are communal spaces. The hive makes the honey. Bees don't file copyright," I muttered. Then a DM lit up my screen. A name I recognized from the Night Borrowed poster. The lead actress, Sarah Vega. I shouldn't be doing this, but I found something on set. It's about your script. Where can we meet? I looked at Jules. She grinned like a match. Where? I typed back. Under the pink line at Damen, Sarah wrote. Tonight, midnight, come alone. I swallowed. The city outside the diner window flickered, neon making promises it couldn't keep. Jules, I said, pocketing my phone. I'm not going alone. Obviously, she said. We paid in cash. We stepped into the night that smelled like rain and opportunity and trouble. As we rounded the corner, my phone chimed again. New email. Subject. Cease and desist defamatory claims re. Night borrowed. From Maris Bloom, producer. I opened it. The subject line, a dare. The first sentence made my vision go white. The email subject line glared like a siren. Cease and desist defamatory claims re. Night borrowed. My stomach flipped, but I forced my eyes to keep reading. Dear Miss Hollis, we have become aware of statements you have made online and at the Lakefront Film Festival concerning Mr. Ari Kincaid and the film Night Borrowed. These statements contain defamatory allegations regarding intellectual property theft. You are hereby instructed to immediately remove all related posts, videos, and social media content that reference Floodlight or Mr. Kincaid's work. Failure to comply within 24 hours may result in legal action. Sincerely, Maris Bloom. Producer, Night Borrowed Productions. No signature from a lawyer, just her. I laughed once too loud. Jules looked up from her phone. Please tell me that's a prank email. It's from Maris, I said. She thinks she's a lawyer now. Jules tilted her head. So, you're not deleting anything, right? Not unless they sue me with Comic Sans, I said. She didn't even CC legal counsel, just wanted to scare me. But my hands were shaking anyway. Not from fear, from adrenaline. The kind you get when someone pushes you halfway off a cliff and you realize you can fly. Let's forward it to Anita, Jules said. Let the real lawyer laugh. I did, then closed my laptop with a quiet snap. Outside, the rain had started that thin Chicago drizzle that feels like static. The kind that makes the streetlights halo and turns the air cinematic. We grabbed the gear bag and headed to the Pink Line. Midnight meeting. The platform at Dammon was mostly empty. A flickering ad for deodorant pulsed in the corner. Sarah Vega was already there, the lead actress from Night Borrowed, hood up, sunglasses on even though it was midnight. She looked like she was auditioning for her own alibi. Greer? She asked quietly. I nodded. Yeah. Thanks for meeting. Did anyone follow you? Jules smirked. We're not in a spy movie. Sarah ignored her, pulling a small flash drive from her pocket. This was left in the sound booth. It's labeled Floodlight Original. I froze. Yeah, she said. Ari had a printed copy on set. He said it was reference material. I peeked once, it had your name in the header. I thought maybe you were collaborating. Then I saw your thread. I took the drive. Why give it to me now? Sarah's expression cracked guilt, fear, maybe both. Because I signed a contract, but not my soul. And what they did, it's ugly. They changed enough to hide it, but not enough to own it. Jules whistled softly. You realize this could blow up their whole production? That's the point, Sarah said, glancing toward the tracks. Just promise you won't mention I gave it to you. I won't, I said. You didn't. She smiled faintly. Good luck, Greer. For what it's worth. Floodlight was better. Then she disappeared down the stairwell, her reflection flashing between train windows like a ghost. The file. Back at my apartment, I plugged in the flash drive. The folder opened like a confession. Floodlight. Final. PDF. Notes. Ari. DocX. Revisions. Maris. DocX. Jules leaned over my shoulder. Please tell me this isn't real. I opened the PDF. My formatting, my title page, my typos, everything. The first line hit like a gut punch. Int. Lakeshore night. The moon owes the lake a reflection. Exact. Down to the M dash. I scrolled through side comments. Ari's notes in blue. Cut monologue too long. Maris's in red. Make her motivation more romantic. Needs male lead. Oh my God, Jules whispered. They didn't even rewrite it. They just neutered it. I kept reading, page after page of my voice being diluted, my sharp edges sanded down until the protagonist, Ellie, barely resembled the woman I wrote. The soul was gone, the anger replaced by longing, the city turned into wallpaper. I have proof, I whispered. Literal proof. Jules nodded slowly. Then it's time to go nuclear. I exhaled. How nuclear? She grinned. Festival nuclear. The upload. We spent the next 48 hours in a caffeine trance, turning my apartment into a command center. Whiteboards, sticky notes, gear bags, and half-eaten empanadas. We planned floodlight, director's cut, like a heist film. Day 1 lakefront shoot. Day 2 bodega and laundromat. Day 3 the bridge scene. Day 4 edit, marathon. We'd intercut my narration with their footage, showing the line-by-line theft. My voiceover would walk the audience through how the scene was written, when it was stolen, and how it should have been told. The tone? Calm. Icy. Like truth served cold. We dropped a teaser online. They said the city shines when it's broken. I'm about to show you who broke it. It exploded. Twitter, or whatever it's called now, ate it up. Thousands of retweets. Number floodlight trended above number night borrowed. Even Film Chatter posted, "We've got a plagiarism showdown brewing in Chicago." Ari's account went private. Maris deleted hers entirely. The letter from Anita. Anita called me that night. "I reviewed the cease and desist," she said. "It's legally worthless. Empty intimidation. You're fine as long as everything you post is factual and documented." "Then we're clear?" "For now," she said. "But they might escalate. Expect another letter this time from a real lawyer." "Let them," I said. "We have evidence." "Good. Because what you're doing, it's bigger than just one stolen script. It's about who gets to own their work when the system bets against them." I didn't know it yet, but Anita was right. It wasn't just about Ari anymore. It was about every indie creator whose story got borrowed by someone with better contacts. Day 1, the lake. It was cold again, like the universe's callback. I stood at the water's edge, mic pinned under my jacket, camera rolling. "I wrote this line," I said, staring out at the gray waves. "At 2:17 a.m. on November 19th. On a couch with a broken spring." It wasn't about a city, it was about me. Jules zoomed in. "Say it again." Slower. "The moon owes the lake a reflection." We held silence. Then I added, "But sometimes the lake takes it back." The drone shot pulled away, me shrinking against the skyline, Chicago stretching endless. We rapped with breath clouds and high fives that felt like war cries. That night, we uploaded a 45-second clip to the crowdfunding page. It hit 100,000 views in 6 hours. Donations doubled. Someone from The Verge reached out for comment. Ari must have seen it, because the next morning, his PR posted a joint statement, denying everything and claiming creative overlap happens in urban storytelling. But then a Reddit user posted screenshots of the metadata inside his film's script file, a line that read, "Original author, G. Hollis, imported from Google Docs." It went viral within minutes. Night of the confrontation. We were editing when my buzzer rang at 11:37 p.m. Jules looked up. "You expecting anyone?" I wasn't. Through the intercom, "Greer, it's Ari. We need to talk." Every hair on my arms stood up. I went to the door, heart thudding. "Why are you here?" I asked through the crack. His voice was low, calm, rehearsed. "You're destroying my career. Can we please talk? Off the record?" "There's no off the record when you stole my script." "I didn't steal it. Maris sent it to me during the workshop. She said it was a concept, open for development. I thought you'd abandoned it." "Abandoned?" I laughed bitterly. "Because I didn't have a budget?" He hesitated. "You don't understand how this business works." "I understand ownership," I said. "And ethics." He sighed. "You think this exposure helps you? You're making noise, not art. People don't respect that." Behind me, Jules started recording on her phone quietly. Ari continued, voice rising. "You'll burn out in a week. No one will hire someone this volatile." I opened the door wider. "Maybe. But they'll remember me." He looked genuinely frightened then. "Not of me, of what I had." "Please," he said, almost whispering. "Don't release the director's cut." I held his gaze. "It's already uploading." The color drained from his face. He turned and walked down the hall, footsteps echoing like closing credits. Jules stepped up beside me. "Did that just happen?" "Yeah," I said softly. And that was the sound of him realizing it's over. The laptop chimed, upload complete. Floodlight, Director's Cut Part 1. Runtime, 9 minutes, 13 seconds. Public. The view count ticked upward in real time. 1, 27, 115, 1024. And then, a comment from someone unexpected. Maris Bloom official. You'll regret this, Greer. I typed back. Already did. Now I'm filming it. The next morning, every major film blog had picked up the story. But with attention came consequence. Anita called again, voice tight. Greer? I just got word. Night Borrowed was pulled from 2 festivals. But Maris filed a counterclaim. She's accusing you of defamation and breach of confidentiality. This just went federal. I stared at the laptop screen, the numbers climbing like fire. This isn't about who wins anymore, Anita said quietly. It's about who survives the story. The morning after the upload felt like the eye of a storm, calm, but only because the wind hadn't remembered where it left off. Chicago's skyline looked the same. Coffee tasted the same. But nothing was the same. My phone hadn't stopped vibrating since sunrise. Journalists, lawyers, strangers with opinions about justice and art and cancel culture. The floodlight. Director's cut video had passed 1 million views overnight. I wasn't supposed to check the comments, but I did anyway. This is how you take back power. Proof that indie filmmakers are the real revolution. They always steal from women with less money. Sue him. And then, scattered between the support. Clout chasing. This is just free promo for her. All artists borrow. The internet was a mirror that showed everyone's reflection but mine. The call from Anita. By 9 a.m., my phone rang. Anita didn't waste time on hello. Greer, we need to talk strategy. Maris filed an injunction to remove your video. They're claiming defamation and breach of confidentiality from the workshop. Can they? I asked, already pacing the floor. Not easily, she said. But they're trying to scare you again. It's a common tactic. They're hoping the platforms take your video down before we respond. So what do I do? Keep it up. Document everything. Don't respond publicly to them anymore. Let your film speak. And Greer? Yeah? Don't underestimate them. They're not just embarrassed. They're angry. I exhaled slowly. Good. So am I. The backlash. By noon, the first takedown notice hit. YouTube flagged the floodlight video for copyright dispute. Jules slammed her laptop shut. They're trying to nuke us before it spreads. Not happening, I said, pulling up the appeal form. I'm invoking fair use. This is commentary and education. Plus, we own every second of our footage. While I typed, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Anita. It was Ben, the sound guy who'd first reached out. Ben. They're panicking. Ari's team called an emergency meeting. He's blaming Maris. She's blaming him. The production company's splitting in 2. Ben. Also, there's a hard drive at the office, with your original audio scratch tracks from when Ari was editing. He never deleted them. They still have your voice saying, Take 2, Floodlight Scene 3. Want me to get them? Me. Proof. Again. Every breadcrumb, tightening into a noose they'd made themselves. The interview. At 2 p.m., I sat across from Tessa Quinn, a journalist from The Verge, in a cafe that smelled like burnt espresso and secrets. She'd reached out that morning, said she wanted the human story behind the viral one. The camera light blinked red. Greer, why not take legal action quietly? Why make a film instead? I smiled faintly. Because they stole something created in silence, I'm reclaiming it out loud. She leaned in. You're aware that some people think this is performance art, that you staged the plagiarism? That one stung. I looked out the window, where the city hummed like an audience holding its breath. I wish I was that strategic, I said. But no, this is just what happens when you try to erase someone who documents everything. She nodded. What would justice look like for you? I thought about it. Not an apology, not a lawsuit. I want truth with receipts. And I want people to stop calling theft collaboration. Her recorder clicked off. Later, that quote became the headline. Truth with receipts. The filmmaker who turned plagiarism into protest. The leak. That night, while Jules and I were editing part 2 of Floodlight Director's Cut, Ben sent a new text. Ben. I got it. Uploading the hard drive files now. Check your email. Inside the folder. Raw audio labeled, Floodlight Scratch, G. Hollis's. My voice. My exact line readings, even the tone Ari mimicked in his final cut. Jules stared at the screen. This is it. This is game over for them. But something in me hesitated. Proof was good. But revenge had a cost. You okay? Jules asked. I don't know, I said, honestly. When you fight for your voice long enough, you forget what it's supposed to sound like. We sat in silence for a minute, the hum of the computer filling the room. Then my email pinged again. From Lakefront Film Festival. Subject: Official Notice of Reinstatement. Floodlight. Director's Cut Screening Invitation. I read it twice. They're inviting us to premiere, I whispered. The festival that crowned Night Borrowed. Jules grinned. You're kidding. They want to show both films back to back, for educational comparison. That's not a screening, Jules said. That's an execution. The lakefront premiere. 3 days later, we stood under the same marquee where this nightmare began. But this time, the name glowing in white bulbs was mine. Floodlight. Director's Cut. 2025. Written and directed by Greer Hollis. The line wrapped around the block. Journalists, indie filmmakers, strangers wearing pins that said number Floodlight Forever. I should have felt vindicated. But my stomach twisted like film in a jammed reel. Inside, the house lights dimmed. The crowd hushed. The first frame glowed. The lake, gray and infinite. My voice filled the speakers. This story was stolen, so I stole it back. The audience leaned in, breathless. Every timestamp, every scene, every email flashed across the screen like evidence in a case I didn't have to argue anymore. By the end, they were on their feet. Applause. Shouts. Someone yelled, "Justice!" I smiled, shaky. It felt like standing on the other side of a storm, but as the crowd parted, I saw him Ari at the back of the theater, cap low, expression unreadable. He didn't clap, he just watched, and when the lights came up, he was gone. The backstage message. After the screening, a volunteer handed me a folded note. No name. Inside. Meet me on the roof. Midnight. Bring no one. It's about Maris. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but something about the tone made my pulse quicken. Jules frowned when I told her. This sounds like a trap. Probably, I said. But if Maris is cracking, I need to know what she's hiding. Then I'm coming. No, I said. If something happens, you upload part 2 without me. Her jaw tightened. Greer, please. She finally nodded, reluctant. At 11:55 p.m., I climbed the stairs to the roof, the city wind biting like memory. A single figure stood near the edge, silhouetted against the skyline. Maris, I called. The figure turned, not Maris. Ari. He stepped forward, holding something, a folder. I'm done, he said. His voice was raw, not rehearsed this time. You win. But you should see this first. He held the folder out to me. Inside were contracts, emails, festival submissions, all under Maris's name. She registered Floodlight under her company months before Night Borrowed, he said. She used your script to get investors. I didn't know until too late. I stared at him, anger curdling into disbelief. You expect me to believe that? He shrugged. Believe whatever you want, but she's still planning something. Like what? She's suing you personally and claiming she owns Floodlight now. The wind tore at the folder, pages flapping like frantic wings. I caught one before it flew off, a copy of a copyright filing. Floodlight, story treatment, registered to M. Bloom, October 2023. My heart dropped. That's impossible. She filed it before your video, Ari said. She's going to claim you plagiarized her. I took a step back, the city spinning beneath us. So what do we do? I asked. Ari's eyes met mine. We burn her before she buries both of us. The words hung in the cold air like a loaded script cue. Ari's confession wasn't redemption, but it was leverage. He told me Maris kept paper trails for everything: contracts, registrations, funding pitches, proof she used to rewrite the narrative in her favor. He handed me documents showing she'd registered Floodlight months ago, framing it as her company's original asset. I asked him why he was helping. He said, Because she'll burn the evidence if we wait. And he was right. We met Anita, my lawyer, the next morning. Her office smelled like paper and persistence. She didn't flinch when she read Maris's fake filing. Filings aren't proof of ownership, she said. You wrote the thing. We can prove it with timestamps, emails, voice files, anything that fixes authorship in time. But we also need motive. Show why she did it. The motive, of course, was control over funding, over festivals, over who gets remembered. Our plan became equal parts legal strategy and storytelling. If Maris wanted to win by narrative, we'd fight her with a better one. The truth, made cinematic. Ari and I became unlikely collaborators again, only this time on opposite sides of a line we'd both helped draw. We built a dossier: emails, Google Drive logs, the flash drive Sarah had given me, Ben's audio files with my scratch voice, everything. Anita called it the chain of custody. I called it receipts that breathe. Then we took the story public again, but carefully. We arranged a small press screening of Floodlight, director's cut. It wasn't about clout. It was about context. The film played with side-by-side comparisons, my raw drafts beside Ari's finished scenes. The journalists and curators in the room didn't just watch the theft, they felt it. One curator stood up and said, "This isn't just plagiarism, it's power abuse disguised as collaboration." The tide started to turn. Festivals questioned Ari's award. Investors backed away. The public began to see the theft for what it was. But victory online isn't victory in real life. The backlash hit harder. Anonymous hate messages, think pieces calling me performative. And then Maris's counterclaim. She filed a new lawsuit, accusing me of breaching a workshop's confidentiality clause. She attached a signed agreement with my forged signature. When Anita saw it, her voice turned flat. "We'll need a forensic analysis. They're manufacturing consent." So we dug deeper. Kai, my tech friend, traced the workshop server logs. He found Maris's laptop had accessed my drive the night before her filing date. The timestamps didn't lie. And my old film professor, Ray, emailed saying he still had a hard copy of Floodlight from a meeting months earlier, signed and dated by me. We gathered it all like survivors collecting flares. Maris escalated again, hired a private investigator, sent cryptic notes under my apartment door. "We can make this quieter." I didn't stay quiet. Anita filed motions. Jules kept editing. We prepared for court. The plan was bold, maybe reckless. We'd screen Floodlight, director's cut in front of the judge as demonstrative evidence. Anita warned. "Courts don't like theater," I told her. "Neither do festivals, but sometimes theater is the only thing that makes them listen." The night before the hearing, the phone rang at 2 a.m. A man's voice, professional, oily. "We can settle, quietly. You walk away, we pay. No court." I looked at Jules asleep on my couch and thought of every young woman who'd ever been erased for convenience. I said no. The next morning, the courthouse steps overflowed. Press, protesters, filmmakers. Inside, the judge, stoic, skeptical, agreed to let the screening proceed. We played the two films side by side, Night Borrowed and Floodlight. The difference wasn't subtle. Mine bled, theirs shimmered. By the end, you could feel the shift. Even the judge exhaled differently. He didn't rule that day, but his interim order said enough. The award was suspended. Maris's registration flagged for forensic review, and the court opened discovery into her servers and workshop records. Outside, a reporter asked if I felt vindicated. "Vindication," I said, "isn't a trophy. It's knowing the next person won't have to bleed this hard to be believed." That night, I got another email, new evidence. Maris. A leaked email chain showed Maris telling an investor, "We'll register Floodlight as a company asset to secure funds." An administrator had replied, "Please confirm the author's consent." No one ever replied. Then Kai messaged, "Her computer accessed your drive right before the filing." It was all there. A perfect storm of proof. But as I sat at my kitchen table, dawn creeping over the city, another message arrived, a DM from a private account. It was a video. 3 minutes. Maris, on the phone, laughing. Behind her, a calendar with a date circled. She said, "By then the filing will be unquestionable. We'll own the narrative." Then she looked into the camera. "And she'll be gone," I realized then. She wasn't just trying to discredit me. She wanted to erase me completely. I sent the video to Anita immediately. Within hours, she filed an emergency motion. The judge froze Maris's servers, ordered preservation of all workshop data. The law, finally, was paying attention. Discovery cracked open everything: emails, access logs, IP trails. Forensic experts confirmed the signature Maris used was a fake. The workshop's IT staff remembered a mysterious upload issue, the week of her filing an issue traced back to her computer. Meanwhile, the story went national. Journalists turned our case into a wider conversation about creative theft and power imbalance. Film schools started teaching the floodlight case. But Maris's team fought back hard. Anonymous blogs smeared my name. Old tweets resurfaced, out of context. Every time I gained ground, they tried to bury me under noise, so we countered with radical transparency. At the next hearing, we presented not just files but feelings, the lived timeline of creation. I gave a statement, not as a plaintiff, but as a filmmaker. I described writing Floodlight at 2 a.m., with the L rattling outside, the smell of detergent from the laundromat below, the way creation feels like prayer when no one's watching. The judge listened. So did the world. When the court compared my drafts and Ari's film, the forensic evidence was undeniable. The forged signature report landed that same day. It was over for Maris. The judge's ruling wasn't poetic, but it was just my authorship preserved, her registration voided, all source files and logs ordered to the court. Festival awards paused, pending review. A week later, The Verge published the full investigation, emails proving Maris had deliberately registered Floodlight under her company to secure investor funds. Her board suspended her. The festivals withdrew, night borrowed. For the first time in months, I exhaled. Jules and I recut Floodlight, director's cut, into something leaner, more personal. It premiered at a women's indie film festival, small, intimate, safe. The audience cried, not just for justice, but for every artist who'd been silenced. Ari apologized publicly, admitting he'd been complicit. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was accountability. Maris dragged the legal fight out for months, but she eventually folded. The settlement required her to withdraw her registration, issue a public statement of wrongdoing, and pay a modest restitution. More importantly, her downfall sparked reform. Festivals and grant programs began implementing authorship verification policies to protect independent creators. It wasn't a revolution, but it was structural change. Months later, I stood by the lake again. The same place where this all began. The moon still owed the water a reflection, and this time, it gave it freely. I thought about vengeance, how intoxicating it had felt to fight, but I also thought about what I nearly lost: the joy of making art for its own sake. I started writing again. Not to prove I could win, but to remind myself I could create. In my essay, Floodlight, Lessons from a Theft, I wrote, "Ownership isn't a legal status, it's a daily practice. Keep your drafts, keep your people, keep your voice. Revenge fades, receipts endure." A few months later, after a screening, a young woman approached me, clutching a wrinkled script. She said, "I was going to send this to a workshop last year, but I saw your story first. I made sure to document everything. Thank you." I smiled. That's all I wanted. Now, sometimes, I still wake up to the echo of courtroom lights and server logs, but the panic is smaller. I have new scripts, new stories, a body of work that is mine, and a community that remembers. The city hums, as it always does, hungry, hopeful, unfinished. And me? I keep giving, but this time, on my own terms.